All right, now we are beginning the last book, the fifth book of the Holy Torah. And it's the book of Dvorim, or Deuteronomy, as it's called in English. I guess that must mean deutery, must mean the repetition. It's called Mishnah Torah. So I guess it's the second Torah, the repetition of the Torah, the book of Dvorim. Moshe, just a couple of months before the Jewish people are about to enter into Israel, shortly before his death, like about a month before he dies, Moshe, as he and the Jews are all on just about to enter the land of Israel. They're right on the other side, looking over the Holy Land in their last camp, as Moshe lets them have it. He tells them about all the faults that they've done and all the bad things, and he warns them, and he threatens them, and he reproves them. And that's going to be this whole book of Deuteronomy. So let's go. Elu Advarim, these are the words. Asher Diber Moshe, that Moshe spoke, El Kol Yisrael, to all the Jews, Be'ever Har Yarden, when they're on the other side of the Jordan River, B'midbar, they're still in the desert, Ba'arava Mul Suf, near Suf. Now we'll see what this means. Bain, between Paran and Tofel and Lavan and Chatzerot and Di Zahav. What are these places? If you look around, you won't find these places. And Rashi explains. Elu Advarim, these are the words. Lefi she'en divrei tochacha, these are words of reproof. Reproof. Moshe is telling the Jewish people what he doesn't like about them. Umana kan kolamakomos. So therefore, Moshe, he is enumerating over here, kolamakomos, all the places, sheich isu, that they made angry lifnei makom God. Boyam, all the places where they angered God. Lefichach stam es devarim. Therefore, he conceals what he's saying, v'his kirum beremes, and he's only mentioning them in a way of like a metaphor, a hint. Because of the honor of the Jewish people. I mean, these words are going to be eternal. Now, here's a very basic thing about this book. This book is different from the other four books of the Torah. All the other four books of the Torah, well, I mean, after Moses is born, in any case. So the other three books of the Torah. So the first book of the Torah, God speaks to Abraham, and he speaks to Yitzchak and Yaakov, and he speaks to Yosef. And then the second book of the Torah, after Moses is born, so God speaks to Moses. Most of the time he's speaking only to Moshe. He's spoken to Moshe. And so it is in the book of Leviticus and the book of Numbers. God speaks to Moses. As Vayadaber Hashem al Moshe lemor, God speaks to Moshe and tells him, God speaks to Moshe, God speaks to Moshe. In this book, it's a different type of a talking. So to speak, it's not God talking. It doesn't say even one time that God spoke to Moses that he should say. Vayadaber Hashem al Moshe lemor. Doesn't say it even once. What does it say? That Moshe spoke. And once in a while Moshe says, God told me, he spoke to me, and he said. We'll see it over here. But this whole book of Devorim says Moshe spoke the whole entire book himself. And no one had any doubt to this very day that this is what God was speaking. So it says, Shechina medaberes b'tov grono shel Moshe. The Shechina was speaking through the throat of Moshe. Because after all, except for the first two words of the first two commandments of the 10 Commandments, it says everything came from Moshe. Torah Tziva Malano Moshe. The first two of the 10 Commandments they heard directly from God. But except from that, everything else was dictated to Moses by God, and Moshe spoke it over to the Jewish people. Or he wrote it down. And he gave it to the Jewish people. But it was very, very clear in the other books of the Torah that it was God speaking to Moshe. Here, it is taken for granted that Moses was speaking the word of God up to now, and now he's also speaking the word of God. And every word, every letter is exact. Even though it says that Moshe is doing the speaking. So you will see in the last book, in the last chapter of this Torah, the Parshat Zot HaBracha, it says Zot HaBracha Asher Berach Moshe Ish Elokim. It says that Moshe was a man God. And it says in the Midrash that Moshe, half of Moshe was man, and half of Moshe was God. It says the bottom half of Moshe was man, and the upper half was God. Go and understand what that means. But in any case, here are the words of Moshe. These are the words that Moshe spoke. He spoke to all the Jewish people. And everyone knows it was like the Shekhinah Medaberes B'toch Gorono, that it was God's presence that was speaking through Moshe. So now Moshe is telling the Jewish people off. He's reproving them. Words of reproof. It says, El Kol Yisrael. So he spoke to all the Jewish people. Usually it says, Asher Diber Moshe El Yisrael. What does it mean to call Yisrael, all the Jewish people? Because it says that if you would have, either Hochecham Miksasam, if Moshe would only have reproved just a few of them, Hayo Elisha Beshuk, the people that weren't there, that were in the marketplace or whatever, they would say, Atem Oitem Shomim Mi Ben Adam, Mi Ben Amram. Below Eshivo, you heard what Moshe had to say, that he told you off, that you did all these sins in the desert, and you didn't answer back. Ilu hayinu sham, if I was there, hayinu mashivim oto, I wouldn't let him get away with it. Therefore, lochein, that's the nature of the Jewish people. Therefore, kansam kulam, therefore Moshe gathered all the Jewish people together. Ba'omer lahem, he said to them, Hari kulchem kan, everyone's here. Call mishi yeshlo the tshuva yeshiv. Anyone that has anything to say should say. Okay, but when we talk about all the Jewish people, usually it means he gathered together all the Jews from 20 years old until 50 or until 60. But here it doesn't necessarily say that. Here it says all the Jewish people. So it means that he was speaking to like 3 million people without any microphone. And how could he really do that? Come on, do you really expect us to believe this? So the answer is yes, of course. It says that God, when Moshe spoke, that God helped his voice and that everybody heard what Moshe had to say. So he said, anybody that has anything, don't worry, you raise your hand and I'll see. You can also ask a question, how could that be? I mean, he's going to see everybody raising their hand. Yes, he can. He can. No, Moshe will see. And I mean, it's no proof. But when they used to be by the Rebbe on Shabbos, so there was like, of course it's not 3 million people, but there was 5,000 people all gathered in there. And if anybody sort of lifted his cup, the Rebbe would immediately see and he would say, L'chaim. I don't know if that's a proof, but in any case, this is what happened over here. Ready? So everyone heard, everyone was there. Where were they? In the Midbar. It says, Be'evar Yardan, Midbar, in the desert. Of course they were in the desert. Right? It says, no, they weren't in the desert. They were in the city. They were in the town. It was a camp. They weren't traveling. Lo Midbar, hayu, elo ba'arvos Moav. They were in a place, a settlement called Arvos Moav. Ma'u Midbar. What does it say? They were in the desert. Ela b'shvil ma shehichisu b'midbar. When he says b'midbar, he's referring to how they made God angry in the desert. Sha'omu, they said, mi'eten mosenu. They said, oh, if we would only die here in the desert, let's go back to Egypt. Ba'arava, what's the Arava? Bishvil for the second of Arava. What's Arava? Arava was the place that Chatu b'Baal Peor. That was the place where they sinned with the daughters of Midian. Banos Moav, Danos Midian. That they sinned. Beshitim, Ba'arvos Moav. In the place that was Arvos Moav, that's what they sinned. So he was telling the Jewish people, reminding them of their ridiculous sins. Mul Suf, they were opposite the Suf. What was opposite the Suf? The Yam Suf, that was when they got out of Egypt. Here, this is already 40 years later. Alma Shehimru is talking about what they rebelled against God on Yam Suf. Baboam Yam Suf, as soon as they came to the, how do they call it? The Red Sea, the Reed Sea. She'omru, that they said, Hamibli and Kavorim b'Mitzrayim. Could it be? Why did God remember before God split the sea? So the Jews were saying, "Wow, now we see that God has tricked us. He's taken us over here to kill us. He could have killed us in Egypt. There aren't any graves over there in Egypt. He took us to kill us in the desert." V'chein also b'nasam b'tochayam, and also even when they were in the middle of the sea, Shnei Amar, it says, "Vayamru al yam b'yam suf." It says that they rebelled against Moshe even when they were in the middle of Yam Suf, right? They were saying that, wow, we're coming in this way and the Egyptians are going to catch us here. Keriisa be'arachin. More arachin. So the Jews were always complaining. Bein Paran or bein Tofel v'Lavan. Between Paran and Tofel and Lavan. There's no places like this. What is this talking about? Omer Rabbi Yochanan Chazarno al Kol HaMikra. We looked through the whole entire Torah. V'lo matzino makom. We didn't find any place which is called Tofel and Lavan. What is this Tofel and Lavan? What is this? Elo hochichan, but Moshe was reproving them. He was telling the Jews how angry. Ala devorim shetaflu alaman. The words that they complained because of the man, which they said, what is it? It's white. Tafel also means to be like tasteless. He says this. We're disgusted with this bread, this light bread all the time. What they did in Paran. What was in Midbar Paran? The spies when they sent them in. And what about Chatzerot? Chatzerot is the machloko when they were arguing with Korach. Chatzerot, the argument of Korach. Davar acher, Omer lehem, he said, Hayya lachem lelamod mima she'asisi leMiriam. You should have learned what I said in Miriam in a place called Chatzerot, because she spoke Lashon Hora. And atem, the dartim, and you spoke bad about God. And finally, one more place Moshe mentioned that is not on any map. He said, remember, Jews, what you did in this place called Di Zahav. Where is Di Zahav? Hochicham Moshe. He reproved them. He got mad at them because of the worshiping the golden calf. Di Zahav. Sha'asu bishvil rov zav, because they had too much gold. Shaya lehem. Shene'amar kesef harbisi lehem v'zav asu labal. They made for Baal. It's a pasuk in the prophet Hosea. What is it? Hosea. The Jewish people, when they left Egypt, it says that they went out laden with all sorts of donkeys full of gold and silver and everything they took from the Egyptians. And when the Egyptians ran after them at the sea, so they brought all the riches with them, the soldiers, because they figured they're going to make a big party. And it ended up that they got drowned and the Jews made the party, and all the riches got washed up. So the Jews had all this money and riches and gold and silver. What did they need it for? What did they want it for? First of all, to give them a good feeling, to know that God is not limited. And what did in fact they do? They made the golden calf. So Moshe is angry at them, and he's telling them. Now, why does Moshe, this is like his parting words. Come on, that's not a nice thing. He should have said, I'll miss you, I'm going to be dying, and please don't forget me, and, I certainly won't forget you, and, thanks for the wonderful experience we had together. No, he says, you people are terrible, you're awful. You just sinned all the time, you were a pain in the neck, you drove me crazy the whole entire time. Right? I hope you don't continue in this terrible way. It's not a nice way to leave. So we'll see why this happened. Let's have a look over here, though. Here is a very interesting Or HaChaim. Let's see how much of this we could do. Here, the Or HaChaim, he's going to say nice things. That Moshe Rabbeinu, we can say that he was saying nice things about the Jews. What are the nice things about the Jews? It says, Be'ever HaYarden, Be'midbar, Ba'arava. It says, these are all nice things. How are we going to say nice things? Listen to this. Let's take, first of all, Be'ever HaYarden. Here, what does it say? Be'ever HaYarden, Be'midbar, Ba'arava, Mul Suf, Mol Suf, Bein Paran, Bein Tofa, V'Lavan, B'Chatzeros, B'Dizav. The Or HaChaim HaKodesh, the holy Or HaChaim, is going to learn 9 good things that Moshe was saying to the Jews. He was hinting at good things, not like what Rashi says. He's not disagreeing. He's just saying you can also learn good things. Number one, when he said Be'aver HaYarden, Be'aver was reminding them about Avram, that Avram is called a Ivri. That even though the whole world was against him, Avram still was faithful to God. Be'aver Hayam. What about when he said Bayarden? Sheyeh mardus belibo tamid. That a person should always have a potential of regret. Like it says in the Gemara, right in the beginning of the Gemara Brachas, Tov mardus achaz belibo shaladam imeam malkios. It's better that a person should have a little bit of regret in his heart. That's better than receiving 100 lashes. That's what it says, Bayarden. What about what it says, Bamidbar? It says that's humility. The Jewish people also had humility. Like it says, L'olam yasim adam ba'atzmo. Atzmo, a person should always make himself like a desert. Look what I explained in Parshat Yitro, etc. That's what it says, Bamidbar. What about what it says, Ba'arava? Right? These are all things that it says over here, look, right? Bo Moshe Yisrael, Be'aver, that's Avram, talking about Avram HaIvri. Right? A Yarden means a little bit of regret. Bamidbar means humility. Jewish people have humility. Right? Ba'arava, Mul Suv, Bein Paron, Bein Tofel, V'lavan. Let's see what these mean. Ba'arava, Shiyate anava bederech hanaot, lo bederech hapachitut v'nimas, that your humility should be in a pleasant way. In a pleasant way, not in a way that's disgusting and that's very low, that you show that you're a nothing and you're a nobody and who am I, and you let everybody know how humble you are and how amazingly self-effacing you are, and etc. That's disgusting. No, it should be pleasant. Pleasant. Kamosh Ketuv, like the Rambam says in the laws of Deus, Od Tanaya Ba'anava, that should not use Laharchich Tochacha al Ovon im Yireh Ish over Pi Hashem. It shouldn't be that you're so humble that if you see someone doing something wrong, that you say, who am I? I'm not going to open my mouth. I'm just going to keep a low profile. No. It has to be humility, meaning that you are not ashamed you aren't ashamed of what people say about you if you know you're doing the right thing. If you see someone else doing something wrong, you shouldn't say, oh, I'm so humble, mi ani, who am I? What can I do? I'm going to tell other people what to do. No. So therefore you have to have both of the things. That's what it means, ba'arava. Ba'arava means that you have to be humble in a nice way, in a pleasant way. And the second thing is, you have to be arava, you have to be mixed in with everybody else in order to reprove others if you see that they're making a mistake. Number 5. Hey, what does it mean, mul suf? Mol suf, opposite the suf. This is istakal b'shlosh devarim. It says you should look at 3 things. You should look at 3 things and you won't come to do a sin. Where are you going, etc. Who are you going to be judged? Who are you going to be standing? And it said you should look at 3 things: where you come from, where you're going, and in front of who you're going to be judged. So it says V'kein Omar, and also the Tana says you should repent 1 day before you die. What does that mean? Nobody knows when he's going to die, so it should be all the time. Upirish Sham Akavana means that you should always be looking at the end. Sheyizkor tamid yom moso. A person should always keep in mind at least a little bit the day that he dies. V'shekol yom huzaman gavul amazing. Every day is like the day right at the edge of death. V'hu masharem is mul suf. What does it mean? Several things happen. Number 1, you feel how precious time is. You've got a deadline. You can't just keep putting things off. So every day becomes very, very important to you. Number 2, it also puts you in the proper perspective. You don't think that you're God and that you're going to live forever, and you can just do whatever you want to. So that's what it means. Mul. You should always be mul. You should be always opposite. Sof, the end of life. In other words, put your life into proper perspective. Appreciate every second you have of life. Be happy every second that you're still alive. Vav. what the Hasidim say. What does it mean? Bein paron and bein tofel. What does it mean? Bein paron and bein tofel. This is what it says in the book Chovos HaLevavos. Chovos HaLevavos. This is what he says. Haparos salaso befanav v'dagoso belivo. A person should always be happy outside, and inside he should always be worried. What does it mean? That's what it says. Bein paran or bein tofel. The fact that a person should always be happy in his face and he should always be pleasant and make other people happy, that means paran. Paran means pe'er, like shining, very nice. The opposite of depression and sadness. That's what it means. That you should always be between these two things. Externally, you should always be happy, and not even a sign of worry or depression or misery on your face. Ukaneged atzvos, but what about inside, that your heart should always be worried? That says being tofel. Tofel means that your heart should not be too certain. That you should always have a little bit of fear in your heart, and like we said before, humility. That means tofel means like secondary. You're underneath. Tafal means you're something number. You don't think you're the number one. So in your face, you're supposed to be happy, and that's what it means. Paran. Paran is like pe'er. And tofel means that you should always feel that you're, at best, you're second best. That's in the inside. 7. What does it mean when it says v'lavan v'chatzerot? That's the last two things, right? It says v'lavan v'chatzerot. Lavan v'chatzerot. Lavan b'chatzerot. Lavan means leiv tahor. Your heart should be clean, pure. No selfishness. Sheyityaches letaharas kinui zeh shel. Oh, sorry. Oh, here it goes. I'm sorry. Sheyelo leiv tahor v'naki. Your heart should be pure and clean. Kaderech sheyitpalel David, like King David said, leiv tahor b'relikim. God, please make me a pure heart. In other words, keep away from hatred. Don't hate anybody. Don't be jealous of anyone. Don't be in competition with other people or try to knock other people down. That's what it means. Your heart should be pure. Lavan. What's chatzerot? Chatzerot means that's the Torah, learning the Torah. Learning the Torah in a set way. Like it says, Yoshev Oalim, when you learn the Torah, it should be b'chatzrot Hashem. You should always be in the courtyard of God. That's talking about learning Torah in a constant way. Learning Torah should be. And finally, the last one is Di Zahav, that you shouldn't be running after money or fame or desires. And that's what it means, Di Zahav. I've got enough money. Shomer Lazav Dai. I have enough money. I don't need any more money. Or you can say that everything that everyone a person has, he should always say that I've got enough. I don't need any more. I'm fine physically. Spiritually, I never have enough. It says, who is a person who's happy? Who is a person who is rich? I'm sorry. Who is a person who is rich? And says in Pirkei Avot, who is a person who is rich? Someone who is satisfied with his portion. And then now you can. And if you're not lusting after this world, so now your heart can be devoted to serving the Creator of the universe. Let's just look at one more thing over here. They're all so beautiful, but we haven't got time to do it all. So let's just do a little bit. Here he says, that what it says, what does it say? 11 days. Achad asar yom michorev. 11 days after Chorev, the way of Har Seir, until this place called Kadesh Barnea. What is this 11 days? Pasuk Echad Asar Yom Mechorev, he says 11 days after Chorev. Now, Chorev is another name for Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai is called Har Chorev. But of course the word Chorev also means to destruction. So it says there's 11 days in the year that we should mourn because of the destruction of the temple. What are they? The 9 days in the month of Av that we started just on Shabbat. Of course, we don't mourn on Shabbat, so today. And the 17th of Tammuz and the 10th day of Teves. All these days are commemorating the destruction of the temple. So we have 9, 10, 11. Those 10, 11 days are Chorev. Yanki rachok mi peshuto katsarnu b'zeh av lashon bein ubein sovel perush ze af b'derech peshuto. So it says echad. It says bein paron ubein tofel. He says all these. In other words, you can interpret it either what we said simply, or you can interpret it like this, which is a little bit stretched, of course. The 11 days, Mechorev, he's talking about 11 days we celebrate the destruction of the temple. So he says, okay, it's a little bit stretched, but on the other hand, it fits, so we can use it, it works. 11 days from the giving of the Torah and the way of Mount Seir until Har Kodesh Barnea. What is this 11 days? Anyway, so he explains that if you count the number of days that the Jewish people, from the time when the Jewish people started traveling after they got the Torah until they got to where they sent out the spies, you'll find out that it was only 3 days. And it was really an 11-day journey, but God made it 3 days to speed it up because he wanted to take them into the land of Israel quick. And what did they do? They sent out the spies, and it ended up that instead of entering the land of Israel quickly, they entered in 40 years late. 40 years late. That's what it says over here. Let's just do this one more, and then this will be enough. I want to learn some of the laws of Tisha B'Av just so that you'll know, and we'll then, God willing, we'll continue learning the laws of the Beis HaMikdash tomorrow. Vayihi b'arbaim shana, and so it was in the 40th year. Ba'ashtei esrei chodesh, in the 11th month. What is the 11th month? The 11th month is the month. Well, the first month is the month of Nisan. First month. So the month right before that is the 12th month. That's the month of Elul, and the month right before that is. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. The month of Adar. The month of Adar. And the month before, that's the 11th, that's the 12th month. Adar is the 12th month. And the 11th month is the month of Shvat. So it says, in the month of Shvat, Be'echad l'chodesh, Diber Moshe el Bnei Yisrael, Moshe spoke to the Jewish people, K'kol asher tzivah Hashem oto alehim. Moshe spoke to the Jewish people what God said to them. So one second, I'm sorry, I'm making a mistake over here. I'm sorry to make this mistake. I made the mistake. Yeah, 1 second. No, that's good. Good. Okay, good. No, good. So it was on this. So when there was the first day of Shvat, when is it that Moses passes away? He passes away on the 7th day of Adar. Moshe passes away on the 7th day of Adar. In other words, a little more than a month after he's telling the Jewish people off. So it says it was in the 40th year, in the 11th month. Ashtei Asar means the 11th month. In the first day of the month, Moshe spoke to the Jewish people all these things, all this reproof. Says Rashi, why did he wait so long? Moshe only reproved the Jewish people right next to the day that he died. Right, he was going to die in about another month. Zion Adar. Mimi Lamad, where did Moshe learn this? From Yaakov. Yaakov also did not reprove his sons until right next to him dying. Like it says, Ruven, Beni, Ani Omer Lecha, I'm telling you, Mipnei Ma, Lo Chachticha, why did I not reprove you all of these years? I saw you doing sins. in order so that I won't have to reprove you, and then that maybe you'll get mad at me, and you'll say, listen, I don't want this all reproof. I want to do whatever I want to. Here, I've got an uncle, Esav, I'll go with him. There's 4 reasons why you do not reprove a person except right next to the day that he dies. Number 1, you don't have to reprove him and then say it again, right? Hey, I just told you yesterday, so that people won't see him, and you tell somebody off. You say you're terrible, you're a sinner, and other people will hear about it. So next time you're going to see your friend, you'll be ashamed of him, etc. Yeshua, and also Yeshua, he also did not reprove the Jewish people except right before he died, and also the same thing with Shmuel. Shmuel, remember he said, because I'm going to die, and you said Hineni Anubi, etc., that you did wrong, you forced me to pick a king, you didn't want God to be your king. Became David, and also he reproved his Shlomo, his son. So these words of the reproof, this is after Moshe smote the Jewish the Jewish people. They warred with Sichon and Melech al-Moriah that was in Cheshbon, and Og Melech Bashan. They took over their lands. That was Ben Eshros Derai. Then on the other side of the Yarden, Moshe began to explain the whole entire Torah, and he said, and this is when he's beginning now this book of the Torah, the book of Devorim, explaining all the 4 previous books. Interesting enough, in this book, there are a lot of commandments that are not in the other books, and that's what we're going to talk about, how this is, why it's just a repetition. We'll talk about that next time. Now,